Elenbass here is holding, there's not an American flag, unfortunately, here in the stadium, but if someone here would like to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I'm actually Button Joan, and I am with the Whatcom Strong, which is the Whatcom Long-Term Recovery Group. So I want to thank you for coming. A lot of you, I've seen many of your faces at the Resource Center as you've come in to see us and heard a lot of your stories. So thank you for coming here tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to have some good dialogue here. The Senator has come to hear your stories, your concerns, so that he can take them back to Olympia for you. So please don't be shy, share. We'd like to keep it civil, but please, you know, be honest. This is a place where you can share whatever you need to. So thank you all for coming. And tonight, so we have Senator Simon Sefzik here, and Kyle Christensen, who is former mayor of Sumas, now works for the county as a liaison with the Long-Term Recovery Group. And we've got Mayor John Perry here from Everson, Councilmember Ben Elenbass, Councilmember Kathy Kirschner, and Mayor Hester from Nooksack, and Mayor Bosch here from Sumas. So thank you all for coming, and we're going to get started.
And so I want you to know that our goal here is to be here as a resource to you. You know, what happened was not only tragic, but it was the result in many ways of bad leadership. And that's why strong leadership here is absolutely key. Listening to the important stakeholders is key. And this is one of those unfortunate situations that all of you know. In a situation like this, momentum cannot be allowed to disappear. There's a moment right now where people are looking for leadership. They're looking at you and they feel your concern, but we can't let that feeling disappear into oblivion. This is our moment to actually make a decision before the confetti goes away and people forget about what happened until another tragedy occurs. And so this is our opportunity to capitalize on what's going on, to make sure that these sorts of mistakes don't happen again, that you have the resources that you need whether it's your home or your business that's affected, and that has to occur. So one of the things we've worked on is a bill that provides for agricultural support to agricultural producers that were negatively affected by the floods. Another bill that I released yesterday has to do with providing several $1 million of relief to be used to rebuild your home, rebuild your business, rebuild your land. And so we're working through the process of negotiating with the other side on getting that through. I'm optimistic that we can get it done, and I'm gonna work like heck to make sure that it happens, because this is important, and it's important for us to be here as a resource to each one of you. So if anybody else here would like to say anything before I think we jump into, again, my goal is to listen and learn from you and to take your concerns to Olympia so that we can use those to equip those in power to make effective and responsible decisions about our future. That's the goal here. So again, unless anybody has something that they'd like to mention right now, I would love to just hear from you what we can do to be helpful as a resource to each and every one of you.
I'm Judy Heinrichs, and I've lived in the community of Sumas for about 13 years. My husband passed away, and I felt that it was a safe place for me to live. It's a reasonable place that I can afford to live. But I'm very disappointed, and I do blame the government for not taking care of us as citizens. Number one, taking care of the river. Number two, taking care of the dikes. And just working to make it a safe community, because this was built on the Sumas Lake. They decided to drain it. They decided to let people buy the land there. My home now is going to take at least $80,000 to make it livable again. Who's going to pay for that? The responsibility is going to be on me. And I'm going to expect that there's going to be some help. I do have a little bit of help from FEMA. I have blessed people that have come alongside me and helped me. And that's the one other thing about these communities. We have people who will stand up and they'll come and help you. I had people come and help me take the stuff out of my house and lose most of my furniture and things like that, but they took it out so that my house could be redeemed. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to another safe place to live. And I believe that the government has a responsibility to make that a safe place for us to live. Whether we are older like myself or whether young people who are starting out in life, it's a safe place, it's an affordable place, and it's one that where the mayor has always shown concern as long as I've been there.
I've worked hard to build a little produce farm there. Honey Farms, we sell pumpkins, we sell rhubarb, we sell snap peas and green beans, field corn and sweet corn. All of that is gone right now. My stand, everything that I've worked to make, cedar fencing. I just think about all the junk that I've collected to make it fun for the kids in the fall. And when I sat on my front porch and watched salmon swimming a foot away from my front porch, I saw a tidal wave. I got totally destroyed. My yard, my garden, my garage door, my furnace. Granted, I didn't get it in my house because I'm above floodplain level. However, when the adjuster comes out, he says that we're 2 foot below grade. We had to pay $4,200 before we could even file a claim with our flood insurance. I've paid $600 every year, but now all of a sudden it's $4,800 because I have a basement. I do not have a basement. So, we have to do something about this. We have to fix the river. If not, I'm going to put up big cement blocks all around my property because I'm tired of it. It happened in the 90s and I never thought it would happen again. And here we go, 30 years later, it's happening. And why? Because, and I'm paying flood tax. Anybody else paying flood tax? Exactly. Where'd that money go? To the Whatcom Lake Fund? Or did it come out to the Nooksack? So we need to fix it, and we need to fix it now. My husband and I are retired. We can't redo what we've done in the last 30 years. There's no way. We want to try, but we're elderly now. We're over 60. Are we going to work that hard to fix? And it's all for the community. Not for us, because farmers spend $100,000 to make 10.
What is new is I would appreciate it if somebody would come and dig the 4 foot of silt and the asbestos out of mine and my neighbors' backyards and take it back to where it came from. The Department of Natural Resources owns the slide. The county owns the property now that runs through behind the gate. And I've heard it said over and over, it's naturally occurring. All asbestos is naturally occurring. It's just how it's manufactured and put into a product. We need our properties cleaned up. Because I can tell you right now, between 3 people, we've lost about 1 3/4 acres. I bought 1.5 acres of ground, and I've got 30 feet in my backyard, and I've got a front yard, and I've got a 2-story house. Well, 1 story with a daylight basement that's not livable because it's full of water. And because I'm fortunate enough that I was able to get an SBA loan to do the mitigation work, to get the stuff out of my house, because I got to stop the water, because every time it rains, the water comes back into my house. So I got the money to do the mitigation work. And the reason I have to do the mitigation work is because the company I called in 2020 to clean my house out after the flood came back and looked at it and said, we won't touch it because you've got asbestos in it. You have to have a mitigator, an actual asbestos mitigator. So we have CAS Construction looking at it. And we've been told more than once, just to get the house cleaned out and everything disposed of, could cost our insurance company, which I'm fortunate we have, upwards of $200,000. So folks, you guys got to take care of business. And I will say, there's nothing that any landowner along the river can do or should do that will impact his neighbor. And the only way we can stop that from happening is for the river to be equally cleaned and banks equally shared. Make the river 3 feet lower, the banks 2 feet higher. That gives us 5 more feet of water room. Something needs to happen, folks. I'm 70. I can't do this another time. And I'm telling you, I don't care about my credit rating. I'll put a sign on my door and walk away. Okay? So you guys got to do something. And I'm going to tell you one more thing. If I could have every one of you stand in my backyard, I would look at you and say, you be the homeowner, and I'll be the politician, and let me tell you what you've been telling me, and tell me how it says.
The city mayors have done an excellent job for flood relief and efforts to help people, but I think a lot of us are really concerned, is there anything to be done for flood prevention? That's like way different than flood relief. That's trying to fix it before it happens rather than fixing it after it happens. And it appears to a lot of us, we're familiar with the so-called levee there by the Everson Road. Well, there really isn't even a levee there, because after attending a few meetings, I'm starting to understand that that's actually a relief valve for the river. When it gets high enough, then it's designed to fail or flood out of that, and that water all ends up in Sumas and into Canada. And we're talking, yeah, millions of dollars of damage here in Everson and Sumas, but we're talking billions of dollars up in Canada. They really got hammered with this flood. And I think we need to include those in the discussions about what we're going to do with this river. And it appears to me that because the base of the river is getting shallower and shallower with all the gravel buildup, that the proportions of relief water flowing out of the different places where it runs out is way out of proportion. This sure appeared to a lot of us this time. And there's got to be some design work on that for sure.
And you're absolutely right. There's two components here, right? There's flood relief. We're working on that continuously. The mayors will be able to attest to this, but the FEMA operation is there, but it is not fully there yet. For example, they've ordered tents up in Sumas that they're going to be fully building out and should have, they've told me, by the end of this weekend. I don't know if Mayor Bosch would you know.
I haven't seen them. They're there. So there's no facility per se.
So they're working on getting a longer term kind of field office that should be set up so that anybody who has difficulties with paperwork will be able to come in and answer and have their questions answered. But you're absolutely right. That cannot be where this discussion and where this process ends with relief. Because if we do that, it's going to happen again and again and again until these areas are just too difficult to live in. And none of us want to see that happen. And so a large part of it is, I mean, you mentioned Canada. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen that is probably going to happen. That is something that we just can't afford either. And it goes back to, again, poor decisions that could be made right now about the river that can prevent this from happening in the first place. But our northern neighbors are not going to patiently allow this to happen while they incur damages that were preventable.
Myself and some representatives from Whatcom County and some other consulting firms. We've been meeting since early December. Once we got through, I think, the second flood in November, because we all identified that, yeah, we've got to deal with the actual emergency right now and get people help, but if we don't figure out some solutions to this, we could be in the same position again in January or February of this year. We've been identifying options and trying to prioritize based on how quickly can we implement them. So certain things are definitely long-term, but there's also short-term solutions that we can do. Some require more permitting, more financing, and those are all on the table. But we've got to figure out what can we do tomorrow, what can we do next summer, what can we do in 2 years, what can we do in 5 years. It's a multifaceted approach that's going to take cooperation from everybody. It's going to take financing at the state level and at the federal level and at the local level. You know, we did a temporary measure on Everson Road 2 weeks ago when we had a threat of another flood. It's something that would help in the event of a flood like we had the second flood in November or one like we had in 2020. It would help decrease flows over Main Street and head into Nooksack and to Sumas. But what we saw in the first flood in November, it wouldn't make a measurable difference. In order to do that, we've got to come up with more creative solutions, and it's going to take millions of dollars. It's money that Everson, Nooksack, and Sumas don't have. It's money that Whatcom County doesn't have. It has to come from through funding from the state level. There's some requests that are going out to the state for long-term funding for the next 10 years to fund projects. There's not there's a list of goals that we're sending to them, but not a specific list of projects. Those goals will lead to that list of projects, and that's where Senator Sefzik and our other representatives we need to push on them to really get that money brought into Whatcom County so that we can figure this out, because it isn't simple. It's a lot of water. I mean, you're talking billions of gallons of water that comes down the Nooksack during a big flow, and we got to figure out where we put it.
Mayor Perry?
Yes.
That's a Zoom meeting also, isn't it? We can access that meeting.
Some of the meetings are, yes. Yeah.
Just so they know.
Yes.
I watched it last week.
The one thing I just want to mention before we get back to comments is this is an all-hands-on-deck operation. It doesn't matter whether somebody's a Republican or Democrat. We're going to work with anybody and everybody who we can to secure this money, because this cannot be a partisan process. We have to work together. And so I'm happy Representative Rule and I have already worked some on this area and are continuing to do so. That has to be done, and it's not about party affiliation. We have plenty of disagreements, but this cannot be one of them. And so we're going to do whatever it takes to get funding, because it has to go obviously through the House and the Senate, and we have to get the governor to sign off on it. That's going to be an all-hands-on-deck operation.
My first issue is with Main Street. That's a state highway. At one point on a Sunday evening, there was a cop at each end stopping traffic from going through, which common sense says that's a smart thing to do. At some point, they were pulled out of there, and there was nothing more. Whatever barricades were in there were washed out. Therefore, in the end, the foolish individuals that try to go through there didn't make it. I mean, even leaving at 9 o'clock, leaving from the middle school, there was still cars out in our front yard that thought they were going to go through. So now that being that, maybe next time this happens, there will be either police at both ends to shut people off and not get pulled out of there at midnight. So that addresses that. Now the second thing is, for millennium, it's been flooding into Sumas. If anybody's familiar with the Van Buren Road, they would know that there's a nice big deep ditch that runs almost from town all the way out to about the Van Buren Road, Swanson Road out that way where it levels out. That was gouged out not from draining or from dredging. It's a lifetime or a millennium of floodwaters going through there. So that has always happened. Sumas has always been on the receiving end. Got nothing to do with being a lake or anything else. But I think the best potential for fixing something like this, obviously with the environmentalists, we're not going to allow dredging as much as I think the river needs to be dredged. But they can put a dike in to keep that water from going towards Sumas and maybe redirect it and keep it going where it's supposed to go, Bellingham Bay. It's the best option. I mean, they're going to leave holes open for these floodwaters and silt and sediment to go out onto the farmland. They're not doing that in Skagit, on the Skagit River, and I took a 2-year degree in environmental science down there. Their silt out in the bay is about 10 foot taller than their farmland. So they need to redirect their silt at some point out into the farmland. Sadly, as Everson and Sumas, they have opened up that hole that allows it to flood right into those two towns. So therefore, my strong suggestion is that maybe concentrating on getting that dike up and maybe redirecting that water at some point. And then I hate to say it, there's not a lot out there other than dairy farms, but it's not a populated areas. On that note, I guess that's kind of all I got to say. I expect in the future, I mean, we're going to have more floods. This is not going to end. But maybe a little more preparedness for the next round. And don't treat it as, hey, we got to wait for the governor to tell us when it's going to be bad. He's in Olympia. He ain't in Everson or Sumas. Nor did any of us vote for him, at least nobody I know.
So that's the cops in place.
Our cops also have to respond to emergency calls. And so that is the issue, is that it's not enough manpower. So while we can keep them on a barricade during a flood, when they get an emergency call, they have to respond. And then it goes to manpower. And so trying to utilize resources from Whatcom County, our fire department. In our second flood, we used the National Guard, but that takes 3 days to bring them in. It's not an easy process, and you really need to know that you're going to need them to bring them in there. What we're looking at, and in the first event, we had over 90 water rescues. In the second event, we had 0. And that's because we had the manpower. We had 42 National Guardsmen to man road closures. In the first one, I was using my pickup to man road closures.
People drove around you.
Yes, and people...
Yelling at them, saying stop. They drove around you and pushed more water in my house.
Yeah, so part of it is personal responsibility by the people that are out there, is you don't drive through flooded roads. We had people trying to drive through 4 foot deep of floodwaters, and no amount of signage is going to make them not do that if they're that dumb. And so we've got to, it is personal responsibility. The other point is, as far as sending water to Canada, there's a flow split that's been looked at and agreed upon even by Canada, saying, back in the 90s, saying that we would take as much, we don't want to take any more water than we took in the 1990 flood. We can handle that much. I mean, Sumas would probably say they don't want that much, but there is a certain amount of water that naturally flows to Canada during a flood. Right now, we're seeing probably double that amount of water. And so that's the issue, that a certain amount of water can flow over those fields and that it can handle that. But with the river having filled in 2 to 3 feet in the Everson overflow, that's creating an additional volume of water that is not sustainable for any of the communities. It's not sustainable for Everson, Nooksack, Sumas, or Abbotsford. And the resultant of that is over $1 billion in damage. So that's what we have to figure out.
all the talk going on tonight, it comes, in my mind, down to the fact that our county has a river flood control people, Paula and all them people, and they do absolutely nothing to control or manage the river. All they do is if there's a washout here or something, they'll come in and fix it. That's all they do. We live, like I said, we live by the river. There's an access road there. We go down there, and there's at least 10 to 15 more feet of gravel up against what when they washed out years ago. I mean, there's alder trees down in there this big on the river side of the dike, right? Not on this side. And one of the things, I was on a board for a while, one of the things the Army Corps of Engineers does not like is trees in the river or on the river side of the dike, because when the water comes up, they move a little bit, it loosens the soil and everything. Our county people think that the trees in the river are a good thing. And I'm hoping that when we get like you said, management comes in, other people are going to come in, they're going to deal with what's going on here. I really hope it's not our county people, because they do not do at all well what they're getting paid for. My personal feeling is if they were a private business, they would have all been fired a long time ago. Well, and the other thing that was mentioned earlier, this river, the flood tax, and that was when I think Jack Louse was in as our first county guy or whatever, right? That was passed. That should have just millions of dollars in there. And where does that go? Who gets that money? Is it all siphoned off and used by other people or whatever? The original intention, when it was voted on, was for the Nooksack River. And so there, some of the money is just not being used, because and then the other thing is, every time you talk with Paula, well, the Indians won't let us do it because of the fish. And I'm thinking of all the money over all these years that we've spent on the few fish that are there. They have got to be some of the most expensive fish in the country. And when you're doing anything on the river side of the dike, you can't use big rocks and stuff, because I figure they must be some of the stupidest fish around, because they think they swim right into them all the time. They'll bang up the fish, into the fish, and I can't figure this out. It does not make sense. It's just crazy in my mind, all the stuff that's going on, and it goes back to the Indians' fault. And I don't know if it is or if it ain't, but they've got to be taken on board to say, hey, because all the money we're spending on the fish, obviously, the way it's being spent is not working. Because you talk with fishermen, well, where do we go to fish? They go up to Canada to catch fish. And we have told our Paul and those ones, well, you got to do like Canada does. Oh, no, we've got it all figured out. We'll do it our way. That's why I say, I think we need new people in there.
Let's talk about a few things here first, and that's what nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about politics. Everybody's like, oh, the blue and the red, we need to get together, we need to talk and shake hands and figure this all out. But I think when it comes down to it, for 20, 30, some odd years, a bad idea is a bad idea, and a good idea is a good idea, regardless of where it comes from, blue or red. But I think when you look at things such as managing the river, or taking care of our ditches or our drainages or any of that type of thing, I think there's been a disproportionate number of bad ideas that come from one color. And I know that some people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. It really is. If you look up here who's sitting on this table, we are the folks that are here to help you. We are the folks who are advocating for the things that you're asking for. We are not the folks who are voting no continuously over decades for the things that you guys are asking for. Council's a nonpartisan position, so I don't often take a partisan stance. I went to Huxley College of the Environment. A lot of the people that I went to college with are the bureaucrats that you're banging your heads against right now. And the funny thing is what I was taught in college and what they were taught in college is the same thing. And a lot of the solutions are real and they're out there, and we could all get behind them, blue and red. The problem is that when you have a crisis, that brings money and power. If we wanted to save these fish, they'd have been saved a long time ago. We've done it in a lot of other places. I think what we really have to look at right now is that not having a harvestable salmon population brings money and power to people. People that like it and they want to maintain it. And they can tell you till they're blue in the face that they want to solve that problem, but I don't see them wanting to solve it in a way that's functional. I recall having a meeting with, I used to be the Farm Bureau president, and I went to the Nooksack Salmon Enhancement Association, a group that I have a lot of respect for, and I think they've done a lot of good work in the county in partnership with landowners and farmers. And I went to the gal that runs that, and I said, hey, we've been doing this, we've been hitting our water quality, figures for a good 20 years. And you guys kept telling us if we did this, if we repaired this many acres of riparian zone, if we hit these water quality marks, the salmon would come back. And guess what? They're not. They're not back yet. So as the Farm Bureau president, I'm here with you, the director of Nooksack Salmon Enhancement. I want to know what's the next thing we're going to tackle. What's the next thing we're going to do to help bring the salmon back? And she looked right at me and she shook her head and she said, Ben, there's no money for anything other than water quality and habitat restoration. And there's part of your problem. If there was money for the next thing, well then maybe there'd be a nonprofit going for it.
It's a totally new idea, but we can all turn out and vote, and then what happens if the algorithms in the machine require that another 3,000 people from the motor vehicle licensing vote? These people whose names are registered, but they're nowhere to be found. This is not. These problems have deep roots, and so we, as the citizens, have to find ways to support the elected officials. And if the governance isn't working, we have to take responsibility for that.
I can say, the Flood Control District Advisory Committee is one of those forums where there's people from agriculture, citizens, elected officials. It's kind of a combined meeting. What I would say is now more than ever, and I like what Senator Sefzik has said, and then also Councilman Elenbass, both of the strategies, what they're talking about, we've got to combine those and we've got to push forward. I will say that there's, we've talked about Department of Ecology, we've talked about the Fish and Wildlife, we've talked about the tribes, and then you've got to talk about agriculture, and then you've got, elected officials. So there's a wide range of people that have to come to the table to get something done. And that's what we've been doing, just like Mayor Perry mentioned earlier. We started this pretty early in December and have been having regular meetings and pushing for permanent solutions. And a lot of that's been behind closed doors because, as much of you understand, in the beginning, you've got to build a concept and build some solutions that are going to be achievable, and it takes time to do that. And that's been going on, and we're almost at the point to where public people are going to be able to get involved and provide feedback to help us to make something happen. So don't feel like you've been left out in a way that would benefit us. We're doing what's best to try to get buy-in, to get everybody on board so where we can accomplish something. I stood up on the stage right after the 2020 flood. A lot of you were there, I remember. And I said, if we don't do anything, then we're letting the citizens down. And we didn't do anything, and then we had 2 more floods. So we've been building this, and I'm committed to continue to drive. And I know, I think it was Councilman Elenbass said, everybody up on the stage, I can tell you, is pushing for permanent solutions. So we're not the problem, we're part of the solution. So I just want everybody to know that. I mean, this is a good group up here, and we have been working hard, and we'll continue to work hard. And the rest of your questions, John, I can't answer how much money has gone. That's beyond me. So accountability is important. And accountability is important. I think I said that at the last flood meeting. I said everybody that was up on that stage, we had 2 rows then, but everybody up on the stage needs to be held accountable, and you have to vote. Everybody has to vote, because who we vote for matters. Have we not learned that in the last 2 to 4 years? Every vote counts, so I'll leave it at that.
I shouldn't have to worry about what party I'm going to vote for when I die. When's that going to change? Where is the paperwork to show these people where the money's been spent? Why aren't they getting monthly statements about this?
Ma'am, if you have something to say, if you could step up to the mic.
Oh, sure, yeah. I just want to, I'm done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we all know what the 800-pound gorilla in the room is. We know how to go take care of it. We know what to do. Now it's time, we need to streamline that process. We need to get rid of the red tape. I'm sorry about the Indians and their fish, but it can't be one all over the other one. That's like cancel culture in reverse. I don't know.
But the only thing I can say about that is don't buy into the narrative.
Absolutely.
Don't buy into the narrative that we can't remove sediment from the river and have fish, because that's part of the problem.
We saw it work in the years before everything came to the streets.
And in other drainages as well. And so we got science, and then we got political science, and there's a little bit of political science that's telling us that we can't have salmon in Dredge River. It's like the same people who say we can't have clean water and agriculture, we can't have clean air and oil refineries. They're not mutually exclusive, so we shouldn't feed into that narrative.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'll shut up a minute.
With all the wizards are smart they got out there. Somebody's got to, I'm of Dutch heritage, proud to say so. Watch them Dutchmen over there in Holland do what they did over there, right? And they seem to be not under the environmental gun all the time. So what are they doing right and what are we doing wrong? Right? We need to get the people that are in the problem out of the way so we can do the job that needs to be done. Now I want to speak to one more thing, because we do live, it gets wet here. It gets dry, it gets wet, and there's that horrible climate change. Climate change, the government likes talking about climate change. We must do everything about, if we spend half as much money adapting to the climate change as in trying to change the climate, because people, I think, trying to change the climate is the height of arrogance. The climate's going to do what the climate is going to do. So, everybody in here's got day jobs and they can't go out and protest and shake their signs and be loud like them, what are the Riveters people or whatever like that, right? But if you have a chance, if you got a spare half minute or a weekend or something like that, and you hear, like a little pop-up meeting like this was kind of spur of the moment, well, we're here. Get down there.
And you all showed up.
We can be loud. We can be as loud as they are. But more politely.
I'm
sure most of you have had enough of data over the last 2 years of COVID, but I'm going to give you one more piece of data. This is from the U.S. meteorological data. The cubic feet per minute coming down the Nooksack River in 1990 was double what it was in November. Okay. So climate change didn't give us more rain. It's simply the Nooksack River cannot handle the flow. And when it comes to politics, it's time to say no. No to fish and wildlife, no to the natives. Say people come before fish.
We don't have an actual number of what our cubic feet per second were running through the river because it has to be reviewed. The flood of 90, I believe the original estimates were somewhere between 35,000 and 40,000 CFS. And then when they realized that the gauge at Deming the river bottom had lowered about 25 feet, they changed that flow measurement to somewhere 55 to 60,000 CFS. Preliminary estimates right now for this flood is somewhere between 66,000 and I'd say 68,000 CFS, so a larger flow than what we saw in 90. Still doesn't account for the extra 18 inches of water that Sumas got, but it was a big flood.
Are you saying what the gauges are giving us, the data they're giving us on the internet right now from the meteorological data is incorrect?
The gauges get, they're an instant reading, right, is what you're seeing, but it's measuring the top of the water, but during the flood, they're checking to see what the bottom is because the bottom is moving. So basically you're measuring the height of the top of a bucket, but you don't know how deep that bucket is. You don't know if it's a 5-gallon bucket or a 10-gallon bucket. It's not that, it changes throughout the month. So through November, the bottom of the river changed at Cedarville, I think 15 feet. So it's a big change then in what those numbers are. So they're analyzing all that data, and probably in the next couple of months we'll have their guess as to what the flow is, but that's all it is. It's a guess based on USGS going out and taking bottom river measurements during the flood, and then looking at historical data and cross-referencing it with all the other river gauges.
I totally agree. We need to be friends with everybody. But there are certain realities and facts that should be able to be talked about, but oftentimes in politics we can't. One of my opinions, remember how I was saying I don't think that Paula is the problem, I don't think Rivers and Flood is the problem, I think that the political will behind them may be the problem. I could say that since I'm the 5th district representative of the Lumbee tribes in my district, I reach out to them often, and I have good conversations. They're wonderful people on their council. And I feel like they feel like we are all good neighbors. And so when I say that I don't think Paul is part of the problem, I have that feeling about the Lumbee Nation as well. I don't believe that they're part of the problem. They would like to be part of the solution with us because these floods affect them. And I do believe that culturally they do want to fish there, but I do believe that there is political will behind them that is not helping them the way that they think it has for the last few decades. And when I have conversations with them, I feel like there's some recognizing that maybe what we've done for the past 20 or 30 years isn't working. I think that's happening all around. And so I would ask the community to have patience and grace, and I know nobody wants to hear that when you just lost your home, but I get the feeling when I speak with the tribe that they are closer than ever to realizing some of the good quality science that's out there, and I think we're going to see different results in the future. I'm more hopeful today than I was yesterday or the day before that that's going to happen.
Over the years, I've talked to several people about this idea from way out in left field. which is the idea of, hey, we get all this water, why don't we contain it and build some kind of a reservoir and then release it when we need it, right? And we'll still have to dredge the river, we'll still have to have levees and all that, maintenance and all that other stuff. But obviously if we had a reservoir holding back the massive onslaught of water, that would be a tremendous help. And obviously that's a long-term solution too. But my question for Councilman Elenbass is there any way to seriously consider this proposal?
I think the political science will tell you that that could never be done. But I think in reality, that might be a solution that is on the table, and I think it's on the table for more than just farmers that want to irrigate out of it. I think it's on the table from, I think both sides are actually considering that. I mean, it would be massive, it would be costly, it would be environmentally destructive, but at the same time, it would give us more abundance than we could ever imagine. And so I think if we could get politics out of the way and be able to weigh pros and cons and be able to look at things through the lens of people are important and so is everyone else. We just need to manage, or so is everything else, but we need to manage that interaction. I think it'll happen sooner or later.
I have close to zero background in environmental science, so based on your education, if by some miracle there was a reservoir, would it actually enhance salmon preservation, or what would be the impact on that?
An easy answer would be that yes, in certain aspects, you could control the flow. You wouldn't ever run into these, you know, they like to talk about the in-stream flow, minimum flows, that the Nooksack doesn't hit it for X amount of days. You could control that, absolutely. But you'd have to, you know, have you studied the Three Gorges Dam at all? So our river is loaded with sediment, obviously, and it's moving down the river constantly. And if you had a reservoir, that would change that sediment distribution tremendously, and that would be something that would eventually need to be managed on the upstream side.
President of the Homeowners Association for Sumas River Estates, and I want to tag along a little bit about the previous speaker that spoke on the Sumas River. We've been hit hard. Our retention area, we have a pond, we have ditches, are now filled probably anywhere from 4 to 6 feet with silt. We have no more drain off of the rainwater, which always fills our ponds. We have sent a letter to every representative from the city, county, state, federal on December 6th. We've never gotten a response from anybody, by the way. But we are told, the lady did a reading, had the silt tested, and it came back with 80% asbestos. So we're a 55 and above community, 30 homes. And I am concerned when this stuff dries and the wind starts blowing. We have a lot of health issues with a lot of our residents. And we need relief to get this thing dug up. And that's why our letter went out, you know, across everybody that we could imagine. So that's why I'm here to reinforce what the previous speaker said about the overflow of all the silt. I mean, we are going to be hurting. That's it.
We've got $42 million in damages to individuals in the community, and $46 million in business damage. So that's almost $120 million of damage that we're dealing with the floods that happened in November. The county council, Ben and I are your two county representatives here tonight. We immediately authorized, I think it was a $250 grant to the emergency, $250,000 grant to the emergency fund. And quickly thereafter increased it another 500 grand. So we had a $750,000 immediate pot of money that our EOC staff could work from. I understand that this needs to be doubled just to keep on going. But there's been no hesitancy from your county council to support all the recovery efforts. And we've got a long-term recovery group that has stood up. I think Ashley has referred to that. We are trying to hire 11 positions that are funded by FEMA. We're in the process of filling those positions. Kyle Christensen here is acting as our recovery manager and has been hired by the county. In early January, we got the news that we'd been approved from FEMA for individual assistance, which was a big deal. And anybody who's been impacted by the floods, and you guys all probably know this, but I'll say it anyway, just in case it gets out there on YouTube or something, needs to register with FEMA at disasterassistance.gov. That's disasterassistance.gov. Many people, and for some reason, particularly many people in Sumas, and I'm not sure why, but have been getting letters back that are rejecting their applications. So I want to make sure that you all know that a rejection letter is appealable, and sometimes the rejection is just because there's not a proper document that was required. So if you've got a rejection letter or you know somebody that has one, hold on to those rejection letters. Don't toss them in the round file. If you are legitimately rejected by FEMA, you become potentially qualified for other programs, the SBA, HUD, or USDA programs. So you want to keep that letter. We've got a disaster recovery center in Everson and in Sumas, or in the process of, and we're soon to have one set up in Ferndale at the community pavilion there. We are hiring case managers to work out of those centers that will help people get through the recovery process. So if you get a rejection letter, you can bring it in. A case manager who's been trained will help you figure out what your appeal could be and work with you to help that happen. I also wanted to give a shout out to CJ Seitz, who works for the Small Business Development Center that is funded by the county, the city of Bellingham, I believe the port, and some other funding. But she put in a request for $7.5 million to our state representatives to help small businesses. And I think Senator Sefzik is working with our other state representatives to make sure that Whatcom County can see that money. We've got currently 186 people still living in temporary housing. That's a total of 63 households. That temporary housing is funded through the end of April. Case managers will be helping those folks find a more permanent solution to their housing situation. Next Friday, January 28th, there'll be another community meeting here from 6 to 8. The state and FEMA representatives are going to be here to answer questions. There's also going to be a meeting in Ferndale at the Community Center, Pioneer Pavilion from 10 to 12. So if you want to come back again and get some more information about the recovery efforts from FEMA, that'd be a good time. And I just want to close by saying that the storm and the impacts that we've experienced have really forced us to all reevaluate everything we're doing. We must evaluate how we manage our managed river system. It is a managed river system. And how we pay for it, and where we develop and where we don't. We need to look at our immediate emergency needs and how to plan for those needs. We have to expand our thinking and the way we respond and approach this issue in every single area. I've really appreciated hearing from all of you tonight. It's given me a lot of food for thought. I want to just also take this opportunity, because I don't think we get to do it enough, and that's to thank you. We've had the community members that stepped up and volunteered during this crisis, continue to volunteer their talents and their time. There's no way we would be where we are without all of you and all of the people that might not be here tonight to hear this, but our community is filled with real patriots, and you've taken care of each other. I see a lot of you here in the room tonight, and I just want to thank you on behalf of everybody in Whatcom County. You deserve a huge thanks, so thank you, and thanks for coming tonight.
It's a huge puzzle, and we all have biases and blind spots and opinions on what we believe or not to believe to be true related to climate change and science and dredging and fish, and I'm the son of a fisherman, so I have great respect for all of it, but it's all connected, this puzzle. And so we need to, I don't have an answer other than we have to keep our minds open and listen to each other. And we need to empower the generation that is coming below as well. So when we have another one of these, it would be amazing if there were like 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old people in this room. Because a lot of the humans that stepped up to this microphone, and no disrespect, like I have great respect for vintage humans, but, no, I'm serious, but, and I'm on my way there, you know, I just reached 42, but,
no school like the old school.
Yeah, and, but right. You know what? And so, and you're right. And so if the younger generation is here, then they can be following the lead, they can be learning, and they can be grabbing that baton, we can be planting those seeds that could spark the imaginations and the passions of those people, those young kids who will eventually be on the stage. And they might, believe it or not, they might have some perspectives and some questions that they would ask that we aren't considering because we are so rooted into our neural paths and our understanding of the history of this place and what we did or didn't see happen from our government. And so all I'm saying is, we keep saying it's all hands on deck, right? But a consistent, sustained action and collective energy is the only way that any real change happens. It's great that you came here. But like, I hope that you keep coming back and like get into the school. Like go talk, did you talk to any kids since you've been around in this area? Like, did you go into a classroom?
I have been in the Senate position for less than 2 weeks. So
no, I'm saying since you've been here, since you've been in, like I know you've been meeting with people and talk, did you go into any classrooms or talk to any teachers or did you do any of that?
I haven't had a chance to go talk to teachers about...
No, you had a chance. I'm not trying to attack you, had a chance, you just didn't. And so I'm saying we need to empower all generations, is all I'm saying.
I completely agree with that. You're preaching to the choir right now. I'm 22 years old. I couldn't agree more. We need every generation.
Man is made in the image of God, and he was given a mandate to have dominion over the earth, and he's been given a mind to do that. The animals, Abraham Lincoln said, the animals just do their habitat the same way for thousands of years, but man has been able to improve. So we have this point where we, have computers and we have gasoline cars, but we haven't always had that, but we're not animals. We need to use our minds and, I believe, look back to the past, the great scientists, and build on that. I don't think that most of us are even capable of following the discoveries and the way that Kepler discovered that the planets move in an ellipse. I've tried looking at those books and I can't really crack them. So I think that as far as this problem, I remember from the last community meeting that the old timers were simple, and they said the deep rivers allow the salmon to flourish. And I understand that there were strategic spots in the river that they regularly mined the gravel and got it. Where I live, there's land that has these big holes that are picking out the gravel, but there was an easy way at the river. I looked at this bill, 1838, about 200 feet buffer zones, and that is, I looked at a little of the wording, and it has an aim to reduce sprawl. And a Native Indian legislator who's proud that she's the only one, has authored the bill. And the Indians were sprawling people. I'm just saying that I believe there's a political plan to depopulate and to do what is harmful for people. And I oppose it, and it's not fair. I'd like to suggest that you would put a bill in there that would say, line out of every RCW that pertains to ecology. Just say, I'm done with it. I'd like you to be really bold and, in a way, simple, and arch over all of this verbiage and all of this discussion, because 9 months from now, we'll have the rains again, and at this rate, we're not going to be prepared. And I know it's possible for us to be, but I don't think without, like by this month this happens, and by this month this happens. It's not going to happen. Another question or point I want to make is that money itself, like if it was translated into dollar bills, and you just throw it at the problem, it wouldn't solve the problem. It takes people doing things, and they need food to eat to give them the strength to do it. They need energy, they need machines to like dredge the rivers. So all of this slow process to get funds from FEMA and from the state and from wherever, it all being planned to just like directly, like helicopter money, just give it to the people. Well, that's not going to really solve the problem. I'd just like to point out that in our country, we've had something called the American system and the British system. The empirical system takes advantage of the resources and the people. The American system, the plan was to make our own national bank and make loans to the people who would actually, in this case, dredge the rivers, solve the problem in a hands-on way at a low interest rate. They didn't need to pay back for 10 years until the problem got done. So I'm wondering if on Whatcom County level, all this money that's been earmarked could just be made available as loans for the companies and the people that would actually go out and solve the problem, instead of like just trying to buy you food and gas to get from your distant house down to the grocery stores where the supplies are being depleted by the overall state of our economy. I'd like to say that the man that didn't make it to be president in 2020, I was very concerned about the fact that, I was very concerned about the one that presently is in office. And Trump has a plan that would be like what I'm talking about, where people build their way out of this mess in a practical way. So I would like to ask that at least we would support him in our hearts. I'm not saying that one man can solve the problem, but he knows the American people can solve the problem.
What she was just saying, I was with Cowden's, a gravel company, 33 years. What she's just saying is, as far as gravel removal, we'll do it for free. All the gravel companies do it for free. Yes, but it's like you guys said, it's the politics. We have to get through the politics to get somebody to say, yes, go ahead, so we don't have to go to jail, because no one wants to go to jail just for going down there, digging out the best gravel that is in Whatcom County. We got the best gravel resource in Whatcom County. It's a natural resource. And, God has given us this gravel. It comes right down the mountain, and we should be using it for what we need it for. But no, we just watch it fill up the river, and then watch the water come over the riverbanks and fill up our town. And so you guys all know that, but anyway, it's not a problem getting gravel off the bar. It's the politics. And what I've heard is, you know, you guys are saying vote. I would like to know who we gotta. I think I'm voting for the right people. It just seems like the right people never get in. It seems like I'm always a loser when I vote. But just keep voting. Everybody keep voting. But it'd be nice to know if, I don't know if I've ever voted for someone that I shouldn't have been, but, you know, so I don't know if you guys can help us with the idea of who can help you guys help us, or, you know, we need to know that too. So thanks.
And I think it was you that also had mentioned that not only are you willing to pull up the gravel, but that the county could actually turn around and sell that gravel. So instead of taxing the citizens, you could be using that gravel to resell and make money to pay for some of the mitigation. So I just wanted to say that again, because somebody said at the last meeting, which I think was you, thank you so much, because I think that's a good solution, so, or one of many. Thank you.
Well, I think it's time for the meeting to close. I'm happy to stick around. I'm sure everybody else here is happy and would love to stick around and talk. You know, this is all just a reminder that when a flood comes to your home, it's not the government that saves you. When a flood comes to your home, you don't ask whether the person is a Republican or a Democrat. When a flood comes to your home, we show up for each other. And so, again, I want you to pester my office. I want you to pester me. I want you to pester each one of these people, and I want us to tell you what we're working on. And again, this is something that will take every level. It'll take, whether it's children in our schools, whether it's at the local level, whether it's at the county council level, whether it's at the state level. And yes, we're gonna have to get Governor Inslee to sign off on a bill that provides flooding relief. And so that means we're gonna have to work with everybody who will be willing in good faith to work with us. It takes everybody for an operation this big. And so I want you to know that it means the world to me that all of you are here. I want to be a resource. Each one of the people here wants to be a resource. And again, we all can come together. We are bigger than any one person, any one set of ideas, and it's time for us to work together and to bring back accountability in our government. That has to be our mission. So thank you, everybody, and it's an honor to be here.